Today we're going to be looking at Words Win Wars by Murray Gold. It's my favourite variation of I Am the Doctor, and we're going to be looking at the three things that make it really effective as a variation. Those three things are a change in rhythm, a change in key, and the nature of the key that we've modulated into. So if we were just to look at Words Win Wars in isolation, it might be a bit difficult to work out why it's such an effective piece of music. But because we know it's an I Am the Doctor variation, we can compare it directly to I Am the Doctor and work out what the differences are. So in I Am the Doctor, we have a BPM of about 170. And if we think about the emphasis that's being placed on those beats, we're in 7/8, of course, we can think of it as being on the 1, the 3, and the upbeat of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 6. So ba 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 ba, the 1 and the 3 and the upbeat on the 6. If we now consider a half-time groove for I Am the Doctor, that would sound something like. And even if we're still going to be accenting the notes, placing the same emphasis, the same accents on the notes in the melody that we were in our full-time groove, the 1, the 3, and the up on the 6, it's harder to pick out where that emphasis is. And that's because when we think about the accenting in our original speed, the ba ba ba, the 1, 2, 3, when we take that down to a half-time groove, in a half-time groove, that now becomes an accent on the 1 and the 2. So even if we place an accent on the 3, it sounds like we're placing an emphasis on all of these three ascending notes. The nature of having a half-time groove means that emphasis is now being placed on these ascending 3 beats and the descending offbeat beats. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. So fundamentally, the emphasis of our notes has changed. So if we look at Words Win Wars and the tempo, we can see that the tempo isn't actually 85 BPM, which would be the half-time of 170, our original speed. It's actually 105 BPM, which is 60% of the original tempo. And what a 60% speed allows us is it allows us the same emphasis that a half-time groove gives us, that 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. It still allows us that same emphasis pattern, but it just gives the piece a little bit more speed, a little bit more pace, a little bit more drive. So it creates a bit more anticipation in the piece. The next significant difference between I Am the Doctor and Words Win Wars is that they're not in the same key. I Am the Doctor is in the key of D minor, or F major if you like. Same key. And Words Win Wars is in the key of E flat minor, or F sharp major if you like. Now, the thing that's important to know about key changes is that if we're in the key of D minor, say, which we are for I Am the Doctor, when we think about a natural key change, we can think about keys as neighbouring each other. So a really good example of this is by looking at the circle of fifths. You can see that it's really easy to move into the keys that have a similar number of accidentals. So in the key of D minor, the only accidental we have is that B flat there. All the rest of the keys are white, which means that this is a very similar key to, say, C major, because there's only one note difference. Same with G minor, the only difference being E flat. It's very easy to move between those two keys, and also to an extent E minor, because there's only 2 note difference. So that's harder to move to than, say, C major, but it's easier to move to than, say, F sharp major. If we look at F sharp major and we look at the black keys, we can see that we're actually using all of the black keys in F sharp major. Which is vastly different from D minor, which only has one black key. This means that changing to this key is very difficult to do naturally. It's very difficult to transition slowly into this key change. The half-step modulation is used a lot in pop music because it takes us by surprise. Because we're moving from one key, which is vastly different, to another key, it takes us by surprise and launches us into the next section of the song. It's often used for a final chorus to make it sound a bit different. It's a good way of changing things up without actually writing anything different. Our melody stays the same, everything's just moved up a semitone. So if we think about hearing Words Win Wars for the first time, this melody, we're very used to hearing the I Am the Doctor melody in D minor. So when we hear it in E flat minor, it takes us by surprise. We're not expecting to hear that melody like that, which is why it sticks with us and has such an impact, as well as the emphasis now, because we're in a 60% tempo, the emphasis is now being placed on every single note. It's actually quite a cartoonish way to write the music if you think about it, and what I mean by that is it's very dramatic and overly dramatic. Like if you were going to really emphasize something in music, you would just accent all the notes, right? It makes it sound very dramatic. So when we hear Words Win Wars accenting every single note, except for these turning points, it does sound a little bit silly. But that's what makes it work in a way. It's playing up the drama of the piece, and it's really making us listen. So we have this combined element of the key change and also the change in rhythm. We also have the nature of the key we've moved into. We've moved into F sharp major, and keys have these stereotypical tones that we've associated with them, for example, right? Like C major is generally associated with very pure, innocent happiness, right? It's a very happy key, whereas C minor is seen as a very sad and moody key. D minor, the key of I Am the Doctor, is a very solemn key. It's quite sad, but quite thoughtful and solemn. And F sharp major is generally associated with being a very triumphant key, you know? It's a very happy key. So we have this half-step modulation, which takes us by surprise anyway, because the notes that we're using are very different. It gives us a very different sound. But then also you have added on top of that the nature of the sound, the emotions that we typically associate with these keys. We go from solemn to very happy and triumphant. So it's a combination of the half-time rhythm, which changes our emphasis of the notes, our half-step modulation, taking us by surprise, and also the nature of our half-step modulation, which really makes Words Win Wars a very effective and impactful variation. And the rest of the piece is virtually unchanged, just repeating ideas we heard in I Am the Doctor, but a semitone up in a new key. It's a really good way to change up the sound, make it sound new and fresh, but revisiting an idea that we have already heard, an idea that we may already have an emotional attachment to, or we associate a certain emotion with. It's a very effective way to bring out the intended feelings in an audience whilst saving time as a composer. Of course, worth briefly pointing out that we are in 7/8 because our original melody, this one, is also in 7/8, so we stay in 7/8 until we find our way into 4/4, and then we repeat an idea that we had in 4/4 from I Am the Doctor. It just makes the melody more memorable. That's all covered in my I Am the Doctor video, which if you haven't seen, I think you should watch that. Thank you very much for watching. A very short video today. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to leave it a like, subscribe, do all the things you're meant to do if you like videos. Leave recommendations in the comments for any other pieces you want me to analyse. Also, please do leave tips on how to make the analysis more clear if it isn't. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. You know, if this wasn't such a short video, I'd actually be really annoyed that I had to re-record the whole thing.